So this week we're excited to be joined by another amazing artist. That's the very talented illustrator, toy designer and artist, and Sith Lord, Mr. Jared Circusbear. Welcome, Jared.
Hey.
Hi.
All right,
Thanks for having me.
Sith Lord. I felt like I needed to say that because you included it in your in your online
That's
profile.
right. It's in the Instagram bio.
Yeah, why Sith Lord?
I feel like I've always identified more with the Sith, I guess.
Oh, okay. Luke, that seems like a response that you would give.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Right. So every week we get to talk to really talented people, but we tend to spend more time on the art poster side of the fence. So, but you do the custom toys, but you kind of blend those toys with more of this like traditional art or this this custom art. So, why don't you take a minute and give us the Wikipedia page about you? Kind of give us that one-page summary of who you are and what you do.
Sure. I guess basically, as a kid, I grew up always into art. I've been making art since I can remember. I always knew I wanted to be an artist, and so I just kind of made that my direction in life from day one. So on that path, I've collected a lot of knowledge and technique-wise. I went to a lot of schooling. I got my undergraduate degree actually in my hometown of Lincoln, Nebraska, at Nebraska Wesleyan University, where I was primarily getting into painting there, and that sort of interest in painting really carried on. I did my master's of fine art at UC Santa Barbara, and while I was there, I was really still pretty concentrated on on painting, and I was intending on going into the fine art world. But I don't know, life has a way of changing your direction, and so where I had initial interest in doing more of art on the fine art side of the spectrum, sure. I found that my interests, like my personal interests, like pop culture interests, were starting to really seep into what I was doing in the fine art work that I was making, and it wasn't too much of a transition from there to I guess the ball got started rolling and it started building momentum, picking up steam, and this direction of pop culture related artwork, and it's been a surprisingly natural transition for me. So it's been something that I really embraced, and so I've taken that experience, this painting experience, and melded it with a relatively newfound interest in sculpture and working in 3D. And at this point, I think it's probably been, 5 years since I've actually made two-dimensional artwork. Everything I'm doing now is, it's in 3 dimensions. I do a lot of figurative stuff in terms of, I do a lot of toy artwork.
Sure.
And so, really, that's how it all kind of began, doing, getting interested in, making custom toys and customizing off of, Kid Robot molds and stuff like that. And then,
now the Vinylmation, there's a lot of Vinylmation stuff now.
Vinylmation is what I do. I have in the past, what I really got started doing, and what I still do a whole lot now. I've got, there's a steady, collector base that I've established that they really like getting Disney inspired designs, and so the Vinylmation that goes hand in hand, and and then so the other big part of what I do is putting original sculptures in shows at pop culture galleries like Hero Complex Gallery or Gallery 1988 or whatever it may be.
So it's I do want to say something on that. You brought up Hero Complex, and actually So we've been following your work for some time, and actually, of the three of us, and we're kind of a man down right now. Luke he also does some of the toy customization things like that. So this is a bit more of his world. But then I know that because you have like this pretty heavy like fine art, like fine detail component. That also, Andrew has also been someone that's followed your work really closely. So we were at Hero Complex, and if I remember right, you asked or you needed someone to take a picture of you, and Andrew grabbed your phone and took the picture. Is that correct? Is that like the thing that unfolded?
I can't say. I can't quite say I remember. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm not sure I follow.
You were at the Thor Ragnarok opening, correct? Because you have a piece there.
That's right.
Okay, so I didn't realize you didn't know the story. Sorry. Okay.
No, go on.
What happened?
I'm learning.
No. Okay. So Andrew, I think there was a part where because they had that Thor Ragnarok like backdrop, and you could go take your picture.
Oh, you're right.
Step and repeat.
And I think you went to take your picture, and someone ended up taking the picture for you. That was Andrew, the guy that's not here tonight on the podcast. And so we jumped in the car after the event and pull up Instagram, and the first picture on Instagram is the picture Andrew, I think, just took of you. And he was like, holy cow, that was Jared.
Okay.
How did I not recognize that was Jared? And so that's actually when we reached out to you. So we were both at the event together, and it was just this funny collision that happened that I guess we didn't know about till just now. So
that's really great. That's really great. Yeah. And it's probably just me being oblivious on my end.
No, it's good. It's hilarious. So Andrew's not recognizable. It's fine.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's okay.
I want to go back. So when you started out, what was there a certain toy or a certain thing you saw that as you were shifting from the fine art to more of the collectible art toy or toy customization that you saw and were like, oh, I could do that? Like, was there anything that helped tip the scales in that way?
Well, I mean, I guess I started out, being a collector myself, and it just stemming from acquiring, sets of blind box figures and I to this day I look back at it and I think, what was it that actually was that transition for me to start wanting to do customs. I actually made one custom. I spent a lot of time on it while I was in undergraduate school, and I just did it. I just made it and felt accomplished with it, and didn't touch the concept of doing customs again for 4 or 5 more years. But when I came back to it, I think I don't know. There was something then. I think that I just wanted to see, how far I could push things, how far I could take things in terms of the techniques I use on the pieces themselves.
Right. So
go ahead.
Okay. I want to go. We have questions from our patrons or our Slack channel. And one of them is the same kind of question I want to ask. It's from Mark Bowden. He asked about your tools. So are you doing acrylics or oils? And then a little bit how you go from sketch to 3D. So maybe talk a little bit, and we'll cover like that basic start.
There's sort of 2 basic ways I'll end up working. And one way is if I'm working on a custom, I find that I don't sketch at all. I don't really plan a piece out at all, because I find that what the trick is you're working to make something conform to the 3D mold as I go in terms of sculpting on it or removing parts of it. So I find that whenever I've tried that in the past, sometimes it's beneficial if there's a very elaborate or section or something that needs planning. But typically I find that it works best to just more naturally find the design as I go on the figure. Now, if I'm going to work on something sculptural, I find that I will do sketch work. I feel that it really helps me in terms of scaling, and scaling is really a big issue. And I'm trying to miniaturize characters or scenes, whatever it may be. So
now, are you saying that
sketch really helps there?
Are you just saying because it doesn't tend to necessarily read as well when you bring it down, like you're making sure it still communicates like that essence you want to communicate, but the idea being less
and
detail?
oftentimes I'll try to make sketches to scale of what I will build. So I have that as like a very like tactile, like one-to-one reference that I can have with me as I'm working. Everything I do is very tactile based. I'm really into, really, I mean, that's why I think I am so into doing 3D work and sculptural work is, I like to push the material around. I like the immediacy of doing things with materials and I guess.
So no,
I guess that's it.
No, that's good. So are you using a brush? What are you, I'm assuming it's sculpting and sanding and painting is like the components, but like how are you actually laying that paint on or that detail on, and how are you retaining that detail for the final product?
Sure. Yeah, I do use acrylics. As I was saying before, my background is in painting, and so it was specifically oil painting, and I love oil painting. I love to use oil. It's never been something I've used on a custom. I don't, and especially with you have to be so careful and meticulous with oil painting in terms of layering so that you don't get cracking. And to do that on a 3D surface just to me seems like a nightmare to even think about. Which is why acrylic is just so so nice and again immediate in terms of putting it on there and allowing you to just truck through it.
So okay, I am the least knowledgeable person in this digital space we're in right now when it comes to toys. That being said, correct me if I'm wrong, you really are very different from a lot of the other people that are doing toy customization. I mean, like I see the people that like, hey, this is a Batman figure and it has a cape and a mask and 3 colors and we're done. And then I look at what you're doing and it looks like I'm just looking at a painting that has kind of been like vacuum sealed on top of like some toy platform. I mean, it just seems way more detailed. It seems detailed in a different way, but it just seems like a really different thing. Is that something that you're like ultra aware of? Is that something that you try to lean into more? Like, hey, I have this fine art background, and so this is the thing that lets me separate myself from other people? Or or do you ever feel like that gets in your way because you aren't doing maybe the typical thing that other people are doing?
That's a great question, actually. And I feel like is something that I am very aware of when I'm making work. The way I like to think about the way I work in the pieces that I make is I like to think of them in terms of like Fabergé egg, something that's very ornate, something that's very intimate in terms of like where the miniature nature of it is actually part of its allure, part of like why I want you to look at it. I'm very into high detail and in just sort of living in that and reveling in the detail. And intricacy. I have had the pleasure to study with realist painters in the past. So, lighting and color in the painting surface has always been something that a way I've chosen to paint, and the way I painted when I was making 2D work. And you're right in the way you sort of allude to the fact is that I see that for myself is sort of one of my stronger suits, and so it is something that I push where I think maybe a lot more of what you tend to see in this genre is maybe a little more like flat or a little bit more, like a poppy in terms of its visuals.
Yeah.
Whereas what I do, it tends to, be a little bit more, more, I don't know, old school.
You're letting the detail be and the intricacy be that pop, not necessarily a bold color versus everything else or a weird sculpt coming out of it. It's just fits the character. All your sculpts fit the idea of the concept, and you're using the detail to kind of pull the person in.
Well, I want to make one note on that because, like, looking at your stuff, and there are like pieces that really stood out to me, and then I had this moment where I couldn't even remember what platform you were using because the thing that was drawing my eye was not the shape of the figure. It was all of that fine, that little paint work and that little detail that you're putting in. And I think that says a lot that, like Luke said, you're not relying on like one bright color. And you're also not relying necessarily, even though it certainly factors in, you're not relying on the shape of the base platform. The thing that you're really focused on is that fine work, which, again, I think is just very different than almost anything else out there.
And I think, and maybe like, kind of what you're getting at is also I'm interested in the old art historical term of like trompe l'oeil painting. Like trying to make a painting that gives you this illusion of a reality, but it's a an illusion of a surface that doesn't exist, or illusion of something popping out of space that is not actually popping out of space. It's rendered in 2D. But I think it's for me it's a fun part of my process to decide where to sculpt something and where to have a painted surface appear to be sculpted. So to kind of find where the balance between those is. And I think that it's definitely something where, sometimes I like to leave part of a piece, the detail actually where I could go and sculpt something to instead, go a bit more simplistic and then make that detail through the painting.
Right.
So and that's really fun. I mean, that's a really fun part of what I feel like I do. Yeah.
So you said when you were working on like your first toy, you took a while and you took your time and you kind of did it more for you than anybody else. Now, how much time are you spending on a commission or a gallery piece or something like that? How long does it usually take you?
It takes. It's something that I trying to quantify piece working time. It's always been a tough thing for me.
Sure.
And I am the type of person who tends to work in like kind of like batches or in multiple projects at a time. So I've usually got a lot on my table, but I find 2 days is a general is a pretty good way to quantify in terms of building and painting.
Yeah.
That's really depressing.
That's a lot faster than I would have thought.
I find it depressing because I wish I was faster. I wish there was more hours in a day, or I always wish I could multiply myself and see what I could get done then.
I know, but what I've heard is because you do this amazing work, and I don't always sit down and plan. I just kind of jump in, and normally it takes like 2 days. And if over the course of 5 years I produced one of these pieces, that would be like my life's work. I would be done. That would be it. There's just, man, there's so much goodness.
No, you could do it. You could do it. Yeah.
Oh, no, I can't. I'm sure. Well, so on that note.
He really can't.
Well, so on that note, there are people that are listening, and again, we have a lot of artists, but they've maybe never tried to work with a toy platform, right? And certainly there's going to be, like, for instance, I have no idea the challenges of working with vinyl or something like that, of what you run into that you wouldn't run into with another surface. Do you have just, over this time that you've been working, some really, like, base level this is like 2 or 3 things that really stepped up my game early on that maybe if someone goes out and buys a blank right now, that would just benefit them a lot?
That's a good question. I don't know that there necessarily is one or 2 specific things to maybe go pick up. I guess I would. I mean, I would just venture. It's a matter of time. Time really.
Sure.
It all comes down to time and I think sculpting is one of those things that's maybe it's just me, but I don't think it is, that people find intimidating, and sort of like not knowing where to start, and like I didn't know myself, where to start really when I was even getting started making customs. I started, just you make one, you make another, and they compounds, and then your skill set compounds, and it's the little things you learn. Sure. Really, I find when it comes to like making customs, and when it comes to like building miniatures, that really I maybe, like you said, maybe takes it that next level, but it's more of like 1,000 little things more than one big thing. And so that's like no help at all. But
so just buy a blank and get started.
Epoxy resin is a great material. That's one that there's one for you. Epoxy resin is awesome. Go for it. It's
nice.
A great material.
Yeah, for sure. So how did you go about, once you started creating toys, and did you start doing customs first, or trying to get into galleries?
I was my foot in was through making customs. Yeah, that's really how I got started. And then
so you started in customs. People started to get to know you. Is that like once you had built a following on like Instagram or your webpage or whatever? Is that when you started reaching out to galleries, or did they come to you? Like, how did that work for you?
Yes, all the galleries that I'm currently associated with actually reached out to me and found me through the work that I was putting out online. The internet has been the single greatest tool for me in terms of what I do, and maybe that's actually the tip. Is really utilizing everything that the internet community has around this stuff. Mm-hmm. It allows for niche groups to, find power within each other. And I think that's how I've managed to be able to do what I do, to do something as like crazy sounding as, making designer high-end collectibles, like toys and stuff. It's fun stuff. It's like crazy stuff, and I'm glad I can do it, really.
Yeah, dude.
We've heard that enough that I would say for someone listening, I think a big takeaway, and if you've listened to the show for any amount of time, this isn't the first time you'll have heard that piece, and that's, don't worry so much about the gallery piece of it. Mm-hmm. If you're doing good work, someone will find you. Yeah. I mean, and we've talked to several gallery owners who have said, don't send us your work. If you do good work, we'll find you. And that seems to be very true. So, Jared, we're going to be respectful of your time and go ahead and move into final questions.
Sure.
So I've got one tough one I'm going to ask, okay? But then I'm going to ask a fun one because Andrew's not here, so I'll just ask his. So but this one is maybe tough, but here we go.
Okay.
So I don't know how closely you follow the custom toy world, but I would venture to say probably pretty closely. And certainly one of the big things that happened within the last couple of months would be Huck G deciding to close up shop. And there was a point in time where it seemed like Huck was the guy, right? And then it's been pretty crazy to watch, and I think some of us have felt this, well, if Huck can't make it, then how are we supposed to make it? And so for you, have you had any of those thoughts? Is that been something you've thought about? Was that a surprising thing that happened, or not really?
I think the quick answer is to say like yes to all the above. But I guess the longer hand answer is as a creator, as an artist, isn't that kind of always the situation? And,
Sure.
It's like, it seems like it's always sort of the balance that, you got to find to, be able to do something in the creative realm and to make a living doing it. I don't know that challenge will ever really, evade an artist.
Sure.
So yeah, I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah,
No, I
that's
think
good.
that's good. So my less serious question, my fun one. I love the Country Bear Jamboree. So can you just talk about the piece? I just want to hear something, a story, like what inspired the piece to happen. I don't know if it's a commission or what, but I just love that piece. Can you just tell me something about it, Jared?
That's great. That the Country Bear Jamboree piece. That's one of the recent pieces that I've just finished up. It was made for one of my collectors who's really into the Disney parks, and I've done a couple of Disney parks themed designs for him in the past. And to be honest, on this one, he asked me if I could do a Country Bear Jamboree piece for him. And he gave me the free reins on it, and so Country Bears is that's an attraction that I have a personal history with. My family and would always tend to go out there in the summers down to Florida to Walt Disney World, and so yeah, I've been on the Country Bear Jamboree probably more times than anyone ever needs to go on it. Which I don't know. Some argue maybe is zero, but you know what? I like it. I think it's cool. I think I'm into the nostalgia of that ride, and so I just pulled some of my personal favorites from the Bears, and Big Owl's on there. He's the center stage on that piece, and yeah, I love that piece. I love it anytime really I get to make a Disney Parks theme design. My wife and I are season pass holders at Disneyland, and so we're generally there, every other week to, see what's going on.
Yeah,
Cool.
absolutely. I don't.
Yeah.
The first time I went to Disney, I went to Country Bear Jamboree because Andrew was kind of taking me around, and from his perspective, it's a must. Like you can't, it's like quintessential old school. Have to see it. I don't know if it reminded me of my family growing up or what it was, but something about it just connected with me very deeply. And
Right.
so it's like when I go back, like that is a have to on my list. And so anyway, loved seeing the piece because it evokes something.
Thanks.
Even
Thank
if
you.
it's whatever that is. Feelings of growing up in the South. I don't know, but it evokes something. So, all right, Luke, take it away.
Yeah, my final question. You've done a lot of different kinds of shows and met probably a lot of cool people and seen your work in probably really just awesome places. What's a story or what's a thing for you that's like meant the most or been the coolest thing of like, man, my work's here, or, oh, that person has seen my work or liked my work? Like, what's the coolest thing so far for you?
Yeah, that's a good question. There's been a lot of, like you said, the kind of highlight moments, and it's hard to choose one. I don't know why it's popping out to me right now. I did a piece, I think it was a couple of years ago by this point, of Rufio from Hook.
Yeah.
And I guess Dante Bosco was down at the gallery and he was able to see it, and I guess he told him that he gave it the stamp of approval. So that was a pretty
Nice.
nothing expected, but
Yeah.
glad he
cool.
enjoyed the piece.
Yeah.
That's great.
That's awesome,
Oh,
man.
Yeah.
All right. So tell people where they can find you. So we've talked about your work this whole time. If anybody's listening and you haven't seen it, stop listening and go look at it. But tell people where they can see your work, where they can find you, send money to you, maybe get a commission. What do they do?
Sure. The best place I say to find me is my website is jaredcircusbear.com. Links to all my social media, and my social media is going to be Jared Circusbear on Facebook, at Jared Circusbear on Instagram. I've got a Tumblr, and I got a Flickr too, actually.
Nice.
But yeah, my more active ones are going to be the Instagram and the Facebook. But
Sure.
wherever you like, you find me and I'll be there.
Perfect.
Where does Jared Circusbear come from?
Jared Circusbear, it's a long story, but it comes from days growing up back in Nebraska.
Okay, cool.
Say that. Yeah.
That's fair.
All right.
Yeah.
We'll save it for the next time.
Next time.
And then we'll dive
Sounds
into
good.
it. All right. Well, Jared, do you
Sounds
mind
good.
hanging around for a minute and drawing some tokens for us?
Sure.
All
Sounds
right.
good.
Up next, tokens. All right, so this is the part of the show where we draw tokens to get the categories that we will talk about next week. So, Jared, normally there would be physical tokens that I would be shuffling, but guy number 3 holds those. So instead, I have an off-camera solution. So, hold on, I got these. No, this has to be official on my end. I have now tokens that represent
tokens. Yes.
the tokens. It makes total sense. Totems for the
Sounds
tokens.
great.
So
You have
all I need
tokens.
for you to do, is give me a number between 1 and 3, and you will be picking for Luke.
Okay, between 1 and 3? Mm-hmm. All right, let's go 3.
3, Luke, you are TV and film.
Hey, all right.
You big jerk. All right, so if you give me a number between 1 and 2, and you will be picking for Andrew.
Let's do 1.
Andrew's Toys and Games. That leaves me with Art and Design. Jared, thank you for talking with us today. This has been great. If you want to see our show notes, we'll link to all Jared's stuff. You can find those in the show notes, or if you're watching on YouTube, it'll be below us in the comment section. You can go to image1podcast.com to see all of our episodes in the archive. Go to image1podcast.com/Slack. That'll allow you to join our Slack community. We have about 300 artists in there that share work, give feedback, do life with each other, and complain about Star Wars. That also gives you an opportunity to ask questions to our guests as well. On iTunes, you can subscribe on iTunes. If you subscribe, Luke, what do you want to do?
You want to rate it, review it, tell us good or bad. We like good, but bad is fine. So
yeah, and whatever you say, we will read it on air during our Tuesday episodes. You can also support the show. Go to patreon.com/M of1 podcast to become a patron. Anything from $1 to preferably closer to 1,000 is very helpful. But, whatever. Take a cup of coffee every week and throw it our way. It helps us buy a movie ticket. It helps us buy a cool piece of art.
If you're going to throw coffee at us, though, throw it at Andrew.
Yeah, please ship that to Texas, because that's where Andrew is. But yeah, so you can support us on Patreon. And then if you're on YouTube, subscribe on YouTube, comment, tweet at us, Instagram at us. Just interact with us. We just want to talk with you guys. We want to draw you into this digital world. And then, of course, support Jared. Go look at his art. And again, reach out to him, commission something. Just generally send money his direction. He'd appreciate it. So, guys, I think that is it for this episode. Did I miss anything, Luke?
No, you're good, dude.
All right. Well, then that's it. I'm Patrick.
I'm Luke.
And I'm Jared.
Bye.
Hold on to your butts.
Dennis, our lives are in your hands and you've got butterfingers?